Technicians, are we ready to start? Thank you very much indeed. Council, if you're ready, let's proceed, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and everyone. We are ready to proceed with the next witness. The usher has gone to get him in the witness room. Thank you.
I, Mahmud Babadi Sarr,
I, Mahmud Babadi Sarr,
do swear that
I'll
speak the truth,
speak the truth,
the whole truth,
and
nothing but the truth.
nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sarr.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for your willingness to testify before the Commission today, especially at very short notice. We really appreciate it. We met today actually, and as you know, my name is Sagar, and I will be the counsel that will be questioning you today on behalf of the commissioners. And I will guide you through the salient portions of your testimony, and from time to time, I may interject with questions that I may have for you. We have a few rules and regulations here at the TRRC, and most of them relate to our interpretation system. So most of them relate to our interpretation system. So it's convenient that you're not speaking in any of the local languages, because you don't have to really pay attention to interpretation and all of that. But I would ask you just to maintain a very comfortable sitting position and draw the microphone close to you and speak loudly and clearly so that we can all hear you. And I'll just go through the overview of your testimony today. We will be listening to your testimony over 2 sessions, this afternoon and after the lunch break. And we will go through your biographical information, as well as including basically your educational professional background in the Gambia here, as well as in Freetown, and also some of the training that you've received within the UN system, as well as other parts of Africa and overseas in the US. We will be going through various arrests and detentions that you have suffered throughout the years. And the first arrest and detention is mainly at the Mile 2 prisons, whilst you were serving as Navy commander in the Gambia Armed Forces, in connection to the events surrounding the arrest of Navy vessel NV Cuta, or Ceuta, I believe. You will correct my pronunciation later on. Your second arrest and detention was also spent partly at the NIA, where you spent 11 days, and then later on at the Mile 2 prisons, I believe. Or perhaps I will correct myself. You spent 11 days at the Mile 2 prisons, and this was in connection to the failed Nur Cham coup attempt. And the third arrest and detention was partly at the NIA, where you spent 4 days, and subsequently you spent over 5 years at the Mile 2 central prisons. We would like to know what impact your unlawful detention has had on you personally, your health, and also how it has impacted your family. And we will conclude with the commissioners asking you any questions they may have, and then if you are given the opportunity, any final remarks that you may have for the Gambian public. I hope that is clear and you're ready to begin your testimony.
I'm ready.
Thank you. Please give us your full names.
My name is Mahmud Babadi Sarr.
When and where were you born?
1961 in Banjul, 13 Denton Street,
And what is your current address?
Catherine.
And are you employed at the moment?
I'm a pensioner.
And what is your professional background?
Seaman navigator.
Kindly run us through briefly on your educational background, where you went to school, and basically when and where you went to school.
In 1967, I went to the Malfa Primary School in Halfdai to 1968, June. And in July of 1968, I went to Freetown, Sierra Leone, and continued my schooling there, and got to East End Day Primary School. I was there up to my common entrance, and then went to St. Helena Secondary School around 1973
And where was that?
in Freetown, Sierra Leone. And then from 1973, I was there up to 1977. Then I moved to the Albert Academy from 1997 from 1977 to 78, where I sat to the GCE O level. Then after my O level, I took a brief course in sea navigation and sat to an external examination. That was in 1979. And then in 1980, I went to the Sheikh Stephen Marine Training School, where I studied seamanship and navigation for 1 year.
And what motivated you to study seamanship and navigation?
Well, when I was a young boy, my cousin was, I think, at the Gambia High School, and during the summer holidays, they used to go up the river with the then Lady Wright. So on one of those trips, I went with him to the Wafinjago, and I saw this big ship, on the sea, and then from there on, I got fascinated. I said, oh, one day I would like to be a captain. So from that moment onwards, I walked through to make sure that I become what I wanted in life.
And what was the highest position that you attained in that area?
I went up to becoming the commander of the Gambian Navy.
Thank you very much. And out of interest, are you Gambian by nationality?
Yes, my father is a Gambian. My mother is a Gambian Sierra Leonean, although she was born here also.
And it was through that Sierra Leonean connection that you went to study in Freetown?
Exactly, I went to Freetown, yeah.
Okay. Tell us what happened after you finished your secondary school education in Freetown.
After I finished my secondary school in Freetown,
Yes, please.
I went to the Marine Training School
Yes.
to further my studies in navigation and seamanship. And
Yes.
like I said, graduated with a diploma in fish geese technology and started working on board a fishing trawler as assistant boatswain. I was next to the guy who is heading the deck department of a ship. The ship, you have two departments, the engine and the deck department. The deck department is headed by the captain, chief mate. Chief mate works with the boatswain, and the boatswain is the head of the deck crew.
And what
I
was
was
the
next
name?
to him.
My apologies. I just wanted to ask what the name of the vessel was.
We have so many. We're having so many vessels: Sierra 1, Sierra 2, the Sierra Fishing Company.
And that was the first time you had training, basically, in this area of seamanship and
That was
navigation?
the first time.
How
But
did
one
you
thing, when I
progress?
was moving from Gambia to Sierra Leone, I went with the MV Apapa. It was in days of the Apapa. So,
Please tell us more about that, briefly.
I was a young boy then, so I wasn't moving around much on board the ship.
But you traveled to Freetown by ship?
By sea, exactly.
Okay. And tell us how you progressed in this particular company that you were working in.
Well, the time I was at the Sira Fishing Company, I was also being trained to become a captain, because the captains on board the trawlers were not educated. So the only skill they know is dead reckoning. Dead reckoning is, when you're moving from point A to point B with a compass, and then you calculate, oh, it will take me X speed to get to this place. That's the kind of experience they were using. So the company wanted educated people to take over from them.
And what kind of skills and knowledge would you bring to the company?
Well, when you are in charge of a ship, there are so many things so many responsibilities that goes with it. If you are not educated, if there is an accident, you won't be able to write your report. You won't be able to tally the fish caught on a particular day, and to do your maintenance program also. So there were so many things that we are lacking with them.
So how long did you remain with the Sira Fishing Company?
Just 1 year.
And what happened after that?
After 1 year, I was planning to seek employment on board, bigger ships, like cargo ship, container ship, but then it was difficult in Freetown, to get those kind of jobs and pursue my career. So I decided to come back home.
And what happened when you came back home?
Yeah, when I came back, I applied at the Fish Marketing Corporation, back of Albert Market. There was this project. We were having 2 fishing vessels from Denmark. So we were told that we were looking for competent people, but the project wasn't forthcoming. It was very slow, the way things were moving. So, but my application was with the Fisheries Department. So one day I went to the Fisheries Department to inquire, and I met with the permanent secretary. By then it was late Usman Uthman, and he advised me, to apply to the Army. He said because he spoke with the then permanent secretary, Mr. Wada, who told him that the government is planning to develop a marine unit. So they are looking for people who already have experience that they could recruit.
And what was the first name of Mr. Wada?
I think Mustafa Wada, Mr. Mustafa Wada, late Mr. Mustafa Wada.
Please go ahead.
And then he fixed an appointment, with Mr. Wada, and I went to the Ministry of Defense. I met Mr. Wada, and Mr. Wada told me that, yes, they are looking for people with experience to be recruited into the Marine unit. So that's how I got into the Gambia National Army as a recruit, and then went through the normal 4 months of military training. And then after the training, I was deployed to the Marine unit.
And when were you recruited into the Marine unit?
I was recruited in the Marine. I went for basic training in 2nd January 1985.
And how long did the training last?
4 months, 16 weeks with the British.
And what position did you attain after that, and what rank?
Well, after that, I was transferred to the Marine unit as a private soldier.
Tell us how you progressed into your role at the Marine unit.
I think a year or 2 after I was deployed to the Marine unit, I was promoted to a Lance Corporal. And I was there until our first commander came, Major Fisher, a British, who came and then tried to set up the Marine unit in a professional unit. So we were there, and then I got promoted to Lance Corporal. Then from Lance Corporal, I was recommended for the cadet exam. So I went to Yundum Barracks for the cadet exam, and then luckily I passed. And then I was later promoted to officer cadet. That was in 1988.
And during this time, what were your duties?
Well, our duties normally was shipboard services, which means most of the time we are on board our patrol boat. If we are not on patrol, we are on board doing cleaning work, painting, and also attend classes because the then commander, Major Fisher, was running classes for us.
Was there an office or headquarters for the
We
Marine
were not
unit?
having an office then. The office was on board a patrol boat called Jatu at Wafinjago. It was later that the government identified a place for us adjacent to the ferry terminal, a place that was meant for Lady Chilil. And then when Lady Chilil sank, they decided to hand it over to Ministry of Defense.
And what was Lady Chilil?
Lady Chilil was a passenger cargo ship that was plying between Banjul and up the river.
And was it named after the First Lady, Lady Chilil?
It was.
Okay, please proceed.
And, okay. So after I became a cadet officer, I was promoted in 1989, just before going to the United States, for the officer candidate school at the U.S. Coast Guard. After my officer candidate school at the U.S. Coast Guard, I proceeded for my search and rescue course. After completing, I came back home, and then I was made a patrol boat commander.
And when was that?
That was in 1990, February of 1990.
And what were your duties as a patrol boat commander?
My duty as a patrol boat commander was to make sure the boat is properly maintained, because the commander of the Marine unit there, Major Fisher, was doubling also as commander of a patrol boat. When we were going to sea, he takes over command, because normally when you return from overseas training, you don't take over a patrol boat and then go to sea unaided. You have to be under the watch of, an experienced somebody. So we were working with him, but anytime he's in the office, then I'm in charge of the boat.
And how many vessels were under the Marine unit at the time?
By then we were having 4 boats.
And were all these 4 boats owned by the Gambia government?
They were.
Were they bought by the Gambia government?
The 2 were bought by the Gambian government, and the other 2 was a donation from the Chinese government. Those are the bigger boats, the Shanghai class patrol boats.
Please proceed.
Yeah, and then, I was here as a patrol boat commander until the Nigerians came, the NATAG came to the Gambia. And when NATAG came to the Gambia, British Army team, decided to leave. And then Major Sarr became the commander of the Marine unit. But before Major Sarr became the commander, it was Major Tilt who took over from Major Fisher to leave. And then
Can you give us the first name of Major Tilt, as well as Major
Major
Fisher?
is Steve Tilt.
Steve Tilt.
Yeah, Steve Tilt, yes.
You also spoke about Saho. What's his first name?
Antuman Saho, Major Antuman Saho took over for Major Tilt.
And he was the first Gambian commander of the Marine
Exactly,
unit.
first Gambian commander of the Marine unit.
What happened when the Nigerians came, NATAG?
That was the time the British left. And then Saho became the commander of the Marine unit.
Did you have any Nigerians in command of the Marine
No,
unit?
we are not having any Nigerian with us.
So they were only part of the military.
Exactly, part of the military.
Okay. Please go on.
And then we were there up to 1994, May of 1994, when I went back to the US, this time at the Naval Amphibious School in Norfolk, Virginia, for my on-the-job training on board the US Lamar County.
Please go on.
We left the US and then on board the ship, went to Fort Legume and collected the amphibious vehicles. And then we sailed across the Atlantic, came to Africa, and then eventually we arrived in the Gambia on the 21st of July, 1994.
And how long did you spend in the U.S. before you guys sailed through the various places you did until you arrived in the Gambia?
I spent about a month plus in the US base going through different practical courses, firefighting and other stuff, before I boarded the ship and then decided to set sail.
And you said it sailed all the way to Gambia.
Well, we first went to Abidjan, and then we were scheduled to go to Ghana, but it was impossible. So from Abidjan, we went straight to Dakar. And then from Dakar, we came to Gambia.
And when did you arrive in the Gambia?
We arrived in the Gambia on the 21st of July, 1994, around 4 p.m., almost the same time that Sir Dauda's plane was making its final approach to Yundumi Airport, because from the bridge of the ship, I can see the plane making its final approach.
And the flight was landing in the Gambia with Sir Dauda in it?
It's almost the same time, yes.
And do you know what trip he was coming from?
From his annual leave, I was told.
From where? From which country?
From the UK.
And this was the day before the famous July 22nd, 1994 coup d'etat.
Exactly.
So what was the purpose of the ship coming to Gambia?
Well, the Gambia and US have this long-standing tradition of military cooperation, whereby I think every 2 years you will have a visiting United States Navy ship to come to the Gambia and conduct military exercise, with the Gambian troops. That was the reason why the ship was here. It was the same thing we did in Abidjan and in Senegal also.
So the ship was here for a military exercise.
Exactly.
And I think we've heard various witnesses during the 1994 investigative theme talk about that military exercise that was supposed to take place. So what did you do after the ship landed on Gambian waters?
When the ship landed in Gambian waters, the embassy personnel came on board, I remember. Colonel Sarr came on board, and I think with the American ambassador for a meeting on how the exercise was to be conducted. But I was not part of the meeting because I already completed my training on board the ship, and I disembarked from the ship and went home. And then I came the next day to retrieve my property on board, and then I was met on the jetty by the U.S. consular officer, I forgot the name, because he told me that Sir Dauda is already on board, and I could not board the vessel because the vessel was at the time about to cast off.
And this was on the 22nd day of July?
On the 22nd of July.
The day of the coup d'etat?
The day of the coup d'etat.
Okay. So you couldn't board the ship?
I couldn't board the ship at all because he told me at any moment from that time the ship was going to cast off.
And did he tell you why Sir Dauda was on board the ship?
Yeah, because he told me that there is a problem in Yundum with the soldiers, but he didn't know exactly what was happening at that particular time. So he said the president is on board for his own safety.
And do you know who else was on board the ship apart from the president?
At that particular time, no, I didn't know who was actually on board.
So what did you do when you learned about this?
I went back to the Marine unit and then sat there
Were you with anyone at the Marine unit?
Yeah, I was there with the commander, Major Antuman Saho, Hassan Sarr, and Sajo Fofana, with the rest of the crew, with the rest of the Marine unit personnel.
And did you observe anything during this time whilst you were waiting?
Yeah, at the time we were there, Joseph Jassy, came, and he told us that, he met with Jame and Edward Singate at the Denton Bridge. And they stopped him briefly. They didn't want him to come down to Banjul. They wanted to persuade him to join them. But I think he was able to wriggle his way, and then, I don't know how he did it, came down to Banjul and informed us that, something is going on.
And who was Joseph Jassy?
Joseph Jassy was a member of the Marine unit. He was a patrol boat officer also at the time.
And what was his rank?
He was a lieutenant at the time.
Did he give you any other further information?
Well, that's what he said. He said that these people are marching towards Banjul, and they were heavily armed.
Did he tell you what they were doing or what they were planning to do?
No, he did not, because he didn't know what was actually happening.
And did you observe anything else whilst you were waiting there?
Well, whilst there, we saw, vehicles came in, military jeeps, with soldiers, well equipped, with RPG mounted on the jeep, and they came into the Marine unit yard, and they just came, turned around, and then went outside, and then rumors started peddling around that, something must have happened, with rumors,
And,
it became apparent that perhaps it was a coup.
And what are RPGs?
Rocket-propelled grenade.
And how were the soldiers dressed?
Well, they were combat ready, in full combat gear, with weapons, Chinese stick grenades, and extra magazines, and they turned their beret over.
What did that signify?
Well, it signifies that, they are now rebels, So, because if you have your cap badge on, which is a sign of the authority of your country, and you decided to turn it upside down, it means something else.
And what happened after that?
After that, I think words started trickling that, it was a coup, and they have succeeded. They have taken the State House, you see, and then everybody, all of us were at the Marine unit. We just stood our grounds here. But I heard before then that Colonel Sarr came to the headquarters requesting for weapons from the Marine unit to be used perhaps as a countermeasure against these people, but the commander then, Major Saho, refused to hand over weapons to him.
And who was Colonel Sarr, and can you give
Colonel
us
Sam
his
Sarr
first
was a
name?
staff officer at the Ministry of Defense.
And just to avoid us overlapping in our speeches, just please kindly wait until I finish my questions before you respond, so that we can follow you properly. And you're saying the reason why he requested these weapons from Colonel Antuman Saho was perhaps to do a counterattack against the coupists.
Perhaps, yeah.
And where did you get this information from?
It was Major Saho who informed us that Colonel Sarr came requesting for this thing, but he didn't give it to them because the Marine unit was equally equipped, just like the Gambia National Army.
And what happened after Saho denied the request?
Colonel Sarr left, and he didn't come back.
And did you hear anything further about this coup?
Yes, on that day, I think Edward Singate came to the headquarters and discussed with Major Sarr about what they discussed. I think he told Major Sarr that they've taken over the government. I think basically that's why he came.
And was it clear at this point who the leader of the coupists were, or who the leaders were?
Well, at that particular time, it wasn't clear who and who were involved, but definitely with the arrival of Edward Singate at the Marine unit, yes, people believe that he was part of it.
And you also mentioned Yaya Jammeh.
Yaya Jammeh, because Joseph just met with Yaya Jammeh at the Denton Bridge. So, but the two others were not known at that time.
And did you subsequently learn who the leaders were?
Exactly.
And how did that happen?
Well, after the coup, I think after the success of the coup, we were asked to go to the State House for a meeting.
What date was this?
I think it was on the very day in the evening, I think around 6 o'clock, I remember. The very day.
And who is we?
Antuman Saho, myself, Atsan Sarr, and Sadio Fofana.
Did you report for the meeting?
We went to the meeting.
And what happened there?
We arrived there and we met some of the senior officers already there. People like Colonel Sarr was there, Mama Cham, Basi Ubaro, Ali Jeng, a police officer, was there. Yes, I can remember him. I think
Do you remember Ali Jeng's rank?
I think he was ASP at the time.
What about Basiru Baro?
Basiru Baro was a lieutenant, I think a lieutenant or a captain.
You mentioned Colonel Sarr. Is that Colonel Samsidin Sarr?
Samsidin Sarr, yes.
And what about Mama Cham? What was his rank?
Mama Cham, I believe, was a captain.
Okay. And what happened during the meeting?
Yeah, I was sitting down, and then Edward stood up, and then...
Who do you refer to as Yaya?
Yeah, Jammeh, the chairman at the time, Edward stood up, and then he started briefing us that it was 4 of them that actually planned the coup. Yaya, himself, Sadibu, and Sana Sabali. But before he did that, Yaya requested for Sana and Haidara to come join us, but they sent message back that they were busy trying to arrange the guards at the State House. So the meeting went on, and Edward informed us that 4 of them, planned the coup and succeeded, and then he pointed at Basil Barrow, and he said, well, you were part of us, but you decided to withdraw at the last moment. And then that very moment, Yaya said, this is not monkey walk, babu eat business. Because argument started, so he was trying to inform the senior officers that, this is not going to be your show. We, the junior officers, will not work hard, and you people come and hijack it from us. So that was the kind of message he was trying to send.
And how long did you remain there on that day?
I didn't stay long there because Colonel Sarr asked them to set up their council, and then Jeng asked them also to come out with a speech. And I remember Yaya asked Jeng to write a speech. So I think after that, argument started, and I decided to leave.
Do you know what the argument was about?
I couldn't remember, actually. I couldn't remember.
And after you left, where did you go to?
I went back to the Marine unit.
Tell us what subsequently happened after that.
Went back to the Marine unit because we were on standby and we didn't go home. So we were there, and then, things started falling. Things started falling in place.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they started organizing themselves, appointing council members and those that are supposed to get positions,
And do you remember the appointments that were made, starting from the top?
Yes, because it was later, it was announced that Yaya was to become the chairman, and so on and so forth. And some senior officers were appointed also. That's how we came to know about all these things.
And you already told us about the ship that you arrived in the Gambia with, the American naval ship, that subsequently carried Sir Dawda off the shores of the Gambia. Can you tell us what happened subsequently with the ship? How long did it remain in Gambia, and did it go anywhere else subsequently? And perhaps anything you know about what was going on in the ship and any correspondence between the ship and council members?
Later in the day, the ship cast off from the Gambia Ports Authority and anchored off State House.
Is that the 22nd day of July?
On the 22nd day, I believe.
Please proceed.
When they got information that the soldiers have taken over the State House and they are in control, they cast off, went and anchored off State House. And then they were there for, I think, about a day or two. And then they were asked to move from that position.
And who asked them to move from that position?
The council asked them to move from that position, because by then there was the American military attaché who was based in Dakar, Major McLean. He was in the Gambia for the exercise. So he was the one coordinating things between the council and the passengers on board the U.S. Navy ship. So he was coming to the Marine unit and convey message to the ship using our ship-to-ship radio at the Marine unit.
And you were present at that time?
Most of the time we are present. Anytime he comes, we'll follow him to the radio room whilst he's communicating.
And can you tell us the kind of communication he was having?
Well, like when they were anchored off the State House, they asked them to move from that place. So I believe it was Major McLean who conveyed that message to the ship captain to move away from the State House.
And that message was coming from the council members. And what else?
Later, the ship moved to Fajara, just off the residence of the American ambassador. That's where the ship anchored.
And this was on the 22nd day of July or 23rd day of July?
I think around the 23rd day of July, because on board, the American ambassador was also on board, and Andrew Winters.
The ship hadn't left Gambian waters at this time. It was still in the Gambia.
It was still in the Gambia.
What about any conversations between members of the council and anybody who was on board the ship?
Yeah, there was a time when Major McLean came and he spoke with the U.S. ambassador on board the ship that the council would like to have a discussion with the former president. So Edward Singate came to the Marine unit And he was the one who was actually communicating or discussing with Sir Dawda about his possible return back to the Gambia and assume the presidency position, but that was impossible. That was what the conversation was actually centered on. And
so what happened after the negotiations failed?
Having realized that it was not going to be possible for Sadauda to come back, I think the ship made up their mind, to leave the shores of the Gambia. And we were told to go and collect the American ambassador from the ship.
And who gave you those instructions?
The instruction came from the council.
And it came from the council to who, and how did you get the information?
The information was conveyed to the commander of the Marine unit then, Major Antuman Saho, and he instructed me to use the American patrol boat that was given to us, to go and rendezvous with the U.S. naval ship.
And what was the name of that patrol boat?
Bolong Kanta.
Please go ahead.
And before we left, the captain of the U.S. Navy ship instructed the American defense attaché that we should not approach in any hostile manner, while on our way to RV with their vessel. And it was agreed, and Major McLean assured them that he was going to be on board to make sure everything, goes according to plan. So we rendezvous with the American ship. The American ambassador disembarked, and my personal belongings that was on board the ship was also offloaded on board our patrol boat. And then we headed back to the Marine unit.
And did you have a chance to disembark or go on board the American Navy vessel?
No. We didn't go on board the American vessel. We went alongside, and then the ambassador disembarked. He was the only one who disembarked from the U.S. Navy ship.
And you were on board, the American vessel, which had Sir Dawda on it, for the duration of your training from the States, and you went through various countries until you arrived in the Gambia on the 21st day of July. Can you give us more description about the nature of the ship and if it had any capacity, for example, to foil any kind of coup attempt that may have been happening in the Gambia at the time?
The U.S. Lamar County is an amphibious naval ship, which means that it's a ship designed to carry Marines, that they are the people who transport the Marines to a war zone. And normally when you transport Marines, you transport them with all their equipment. So the ship had all the components of a Marine company. They had their amphibious tanks, amphibious vehicles that can move both on land and on the sea. And then the ship also have its own defense mechanism, like anti-missile weapons, and with heavy, guns that they can use to pound, enemy position, then to give access to the Marines to go and take over the territory or whatever. So they were well equipped, and if they had wanted to foil a coup, they would have.
So they clearly had the capacity to foil the coup, but chose not to do so.
Exactly.
And we won't go into the reasons why they failed to do so, but we'll just continue on and tell us what happened after you went back to the Marine unit and disembarked with the ambassador.
Well, on our way going back, whilst on board our own patrol vessel, the ambassador, said to me that, well, it's good that we are now in charge of our army. Perhaps they didn't like, the presence of the Nigerians, because they were having a military government, and I don't think the United States government was in good relation with the military government then, Nigeria. So that's what he told me, that they are not happy that we are in charge of our army.
Thank you very much. And what happened when you disembarked in Banjul?
When we arrived, they disembarked, and then his vehicle was already there waiting for him. And then he boarded his vehicle and drove off together with the military attaché. He came with his own vehicle from Dakar, and they drove off.
And do you know what happened to the American Navy vessel that had Sir Dawda on board?
They went to Dakar.
And what happened when they went to Dakar?
When they went to Dakar, I think they dropped off the passengers, Sir Dawda and his entourage.
Would you happen to remember anyone who was part of his entourage?
Yeah, later I heard that President was on board. Obviously, the ADC was with him. I think those are the only people I could remember.
Do you know whether his family was on board as well?
Oh yes, I was told, yes. When I went to the jetty, that's what the ambassador told me, or the president and his family. Yes, are already on board, yes.
All right. Can you tell us a bit more about the appointments that were made after the coupists came into power? Your commander at the time, Antuman Saho, was his position changed?
Antuman Saho was appointed mayor of Banjul, and at the same time he was overseeing the Marine unit.
And what was your position then?
My position then was like the de facto commander.
You were the commander on the ground because Antuman Saho was attending to his mayoral duties.
Exactly.
And can you tell us who you were heading the Marine unit with? Who were your junior officers, or perhaps the two other most senior officers at the Marine unit at the time?
Sarr was there, was my deputy, and then Sergio Fofana.
Please give me their ranks again.
Hassan was a lieutenant. Fofana also was a lieutenant. Including myself also, I was a lieutenant also.
And how did you progress after that, after you were de facto commander of the Marine unit? What happened next in terms of your progression in the Marine?
A few months after Antuman was appointed the mayor of Banjul, his command responsibility as Marine commander was taken from him because they felt, he cannot hold two positions at the same time, one civilian, one military, so he cannot run Banjul City Council at the same time, running the Marine unit. So the Marine unit position was taken from him, and then I became the Marine unit commander by virtue of my seniority.
And were there any other senior officers, perhaps senior to you, who were part of the Marine unit, but perhaps were not on the ground or were not in the jurisdiction at the time?
Yeah, Ibu Jallo was next after Major Antuman Saho, but he was not in town at the time. He was in the US also studying.
Was that an official course he was pursuing?
He was.
And did he subsequently come back?
Okay, he came back, and then he reported to the Marine unit, and I told him that I'm ready to hand over the Marine unit to him, and he asked me to hold on, that he's onto something. Let me carry on, commanding the Marine unit until later. I said, okay, then that's fine.
When
And
was
then
this? Give us the date he came back. The year will be sufficient if you can't remember the precise date.
He came the same year, 1994. Yeah, because he went in, I think in June. I think the course was for about 4 or 6 months. I think he came around October or November.
Was he subsequently appointed to any other position?
He was appointed commissioner of commissioner of Brikama.
And subsequently, was he appointed to any other position?
And then later, when I think, yeah, he was appointed as the spokesman for the council.
Okay, spokesman of the council. And he never assumed his position as commander of the Marine unit.
No, he never.
So you continued to perform those duties.
That's correct.
And did anything subsequently happen with the Marine unit of the Gambia?
In 1997, the Marine unit was transformed into the Gambia Navy. But basically, the role we were playing as Marine units, it did not change at all, because it was like same thing. It's just the name that changes.
So
But
the
the same
nature
role.
remained the same, the duties remained the same, but just operating under a different name.
That's correct.
And where were you headquartered?
By this time, our headquarters was still adjacent to the ferry terminal. That's where the headquarters was, and the command. The command is like what you refer to as battalion in the army.
And what was your official title after the Marine unit was converted to the Navy?
I became the commander of the Gambia Navy.
And you were just not de facto, but also de jure.
Substantive, exactly.
And what happened after that?
A year later, in 1998, I went to Nigeria for my junior staff course. That was in January to June.
And how long did that course last?
6 months.
You came back, and what happened next?
Assumed command of the Navy.
And during your absence, who was commanding the Navy?
It was Hassan who was commanding at the time, because he was my deputy then.
Did you go on any other courses after you attended the course in Nigeria?
In the year 2000, I went back to Nigeria for my senior command and staff course, which lasted for 12 months.
Please proceed, and after that?
And after that, I came back in July of 2001. 2002, I went to Sierra Leone as a military observer under UNAMSIL.
And
I
what
was
is
there for-
UNAMSIL?
United Nations mission in Sierra Leone for 12 months.
Were you there alone, or did you go with other members of the security forces in the Gambia?
I was here with colleague officers.
How many of you?
Close to 15 of us.
And were you the most senior on the ground?
I was.
And how long did it last, and when did you come back?
12 months, and I came back in January 2003.
And did you subsequently travel again?
In 2004, yes, I went to the African mission in Darfur as a group site commander.
And how long did you spend there?
13 months.
Please go on, Mr. Sarr.
I spent 13 months in Darfur and then came back to the Gambia. I arrived in Gambia sometime in December and then went to the joint headquarters to report to the newly appointed CDS, that was Ndur Cham.
And was this after the UNAMSIL mission or the African Union mission in Darfur?
After the African mission in Darfur.
And this would have been in 2004?
That was 2005, because I went to Darfur in 2004 and came back 2005.
Okay. And when was the CDS Ndur Cham appointed to that position?
Ndur Cham was appointed I think the day we left Darfur, because I think that was the day Hassan was fired, and he was appointed on the very day.
And which Hassan are you referring to?
Hassan Sarr.
And he was deputizing you at some point?
Yes.
At the Marine unit?
Exactly.
Please go on.
And then when I arrived at the joint headquarters to pay my normal courtesy, as is usual with officers who return from overseas assignment, I went to his office, and then he oddly entered the office with a cup of coffee, and then he said, MB, he pointed a picture at Yaya. He said, we have decided to remove him.
Just like that?
Just like that.
You didn't have any other conversation with him prior to that?
Nothing.
You just entered the room and he said that?
No, entered the room, sat down, and then the orderly came with a cup of coffee. Or perhaps he called the orderly when I entered for him to prepare a cup of coffee for him.
And this was said in the presence of his orderly?
Of his orderly, exactly.
Who was his orderly?
I think a fair complexion guy. I think his surname is either Jallo or Bar.
Was there any other person in that room?
No.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sarr. We have come to our lunch break now, so we'll just take a break at this point and then come back and continue after the break. Mr. Chairman, I hand over the witness to you for the break. Thank you.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, Mr. Sarr. We will take a 1-hour break and come back at 2:35. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.